Commercial Construction Coffee Talk fans. Thanks for chiming in. My name's David Corson. I'm your host. I'm also the publisher and editor of Commercial Construction Renovation magazine. Hey, well, we used to print it, but that's what it used to look like. We're 100% digital now. Got a few more covers behind me. There's Christopher Mammoth, JLL, Chicken Guy. I got Tim Houghton. All sorts of people coming in there. Anyway, got a really cool guy coming up on our next cover. Got an architect, Neiman Tabor. We're going to have a couple of their multifamily projects on our next cover. It's going to post next week. And excited to see that issue. It's got our lighting and annual general contractor survey. So issue's looking great. We're in production mode right now. So we're putting the jigsaw puzzle together. And anyway, I'm holding down the fort too, because we got 4th of July coming up this weekend. Sizzling hot here in the ATL, sunny, hot, and as usual, the thunderstorms come in every day, and we'll take the rain. I'm up right below the dam and the lake, so the lake's at 1070. We're full pull, and even though they're letting a lot of water out, the thunderstorms, refill it just about every day. I get a thunderstorm. We had a boomer that came through here and just dumped a ton of water in about a half hour. So here in the South, we take as much water as we can because they let it out to Alabama and Florida, and shoot, it goes downstream, for all the farmers and stuff. So Lake Lanier, it's like an ocean, but you got to keep it full. So, but anyway, 4th of July coming up. Hopefully everybody's getting ready. Eat some hamburgers, hot dogs. Don't work. Recharge your battery. It's Independence. Remember 1776 and all that stuff. So I'm looking forward to it. My mom's driving right now. She's probably somewhere hitting Chattanooga right about now. So she's going to be here in a couple hours. So looking forward to having her stay with us over the next couple days over the holiday weekend. And my son, he's finishing up his A&P test up in Nashville. And he's going to come home with his head high probably Tuesday or Wednesday with his A&P license. So for those who know what that is, that's in the aviation industry. It's a airframe and powertrain, and he's working for Boeing, but he's got a bunch of offers, and who knows where he's going to end up. It could be Phoenix, Salt Lake, Nashville, Tucson. I don't know. He's 22 and he's got the world at his fingers. So we'll see where he ends up, but he's got his oral and his written coming up early next week, and that's the big one where you have to answer the questions. Then you go in and you show you what you can do with your hands, and put the hydraulic or grind a piece of lead into something. I wish I could see that because I've seen him do it, but I'd like to see him, test, but they don't let the parents watch. So, but he's been up there for 2 weeks. He's living in a hotel and taking all of his tests. It's like taking the MedCats or, the bar for, to become a lawyer. I mean, it's just high-tech stuff. He's working on 787s in Boeing. So it's, he's right at the ground floor with the planes coming out. So this is a big thing for him. And, we're wishing him well he's got one test tomorrow, and then he's got the oral and the written early next week. And we're hoping he'll pass it and come home and say, look, A&P official. So anyway, got 2 nice gentlemen out in the Northwest in Portland. And the reason why I, actually had them on is, construction safety. That's the biggest thing. And what's probably the most important thing that you got to protect when you're on a construction site? Your head. So you don't want anything falling down on it. And, you got to have protection. So we have Michael Bottling and Steve Madey. They're with WaveCel hard hats. They're up in Portland, up in the Northwest of the USA. Mike, Steve, say hello to our listeners out there, Commercial Construction Coffee Talk. So I've got Steve on the left in the dark jacket, and I've got Michael in the I'm down in the States, southeast, so in that peach shirt. So gentlemen, say hello to our audience out there.
Hey, I'm Steve Madey, and it's a pleasure to be with you today. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Michael Bottling. Dave, thanks so much for having us. That will be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I posted some press releases for you guys, and your publicist reached out to me, and we were talking, and I said, hey, I've never had a hard hat manufacturer, or distributor, on our episode. So I'd love to have you. And I do a little poison ivy removal with my wife. We have a small contracting business. And the other day, a couple weekends ago, I was doing a job, and we wear the suits and all that. But this guy was pushing this tree, and it was a dead tree, and he the tree came down and this piece of wood, like a branch, pretty decent sized one, came down, hit the hard hat. If you didn't have his hard hat on, probably would have gotten stitches. It was a good smack on the head. But if you don't wear it, you're not protected. So, but talking about hard hats, my family's been in business since 1888 in steel recycling. So it's like fifth generation. My cousin just running. This was my grandfather's hard hat. This is about 50 or 60 years old. Mayor Pollock Steel, right outside Philly. Anyway, I was up in Ohio a couple weeks back, helped my mom clean out the house, and she's like, "Hey, do you want your grandfather's hard hat?" And I go, "I got a bunch of them. I never saw. Oh my God, that one's really old." So this is me. Mayor Pollock Steel. And when I was 16, when outside of Philly we got our driver's license, we all had to work out in the scrapyard. So I got to find where my old hard hat is, because I had all the stickers on it and the goggles and all that stuff. But I understand about hard hats. They were like, "Hey, you got to watch out for the overhead cranes, because they don't really care about you grunts out in the stock in the scrapyard, man. They'll drop stuff on you. You got to look out." So I learned at a very early age that you got to protect your head. I'm an athlete too: lacrosse, ice hockey, football, whatever. I played them all. You got your helmet is probably the most important thing that you can wear. So having a helmet, having a hard hat, it's just key. So this is the way it's going to work as far as our talk today. Each one of you will tell us just a little bio on where you grew up, where you went to school, and how you ended up meeting each other, or getting into business in the hard hat industry. And then we'll talk about the roller coaster over the last 24 months and any new products that you have. And then we'll close it out with your contact info. So with that said, gentlemen, the floor is yours. Tell us your story.
I'll start.
Sure.
I was born and raised in New York, mostly out on Long Island. And I went to high school there, and then went to college there. I went to Hofstra, and went to St. John's for a small bit. And then I went to med school at Columbia, and I became a doctor, an orthopedic surgeon. But I spent all of my formative years in New York. And then when I did my residency in orthopedics, I went out to Iowa, and I spent about 7 years out in Iowa getting smarter, because I was kind of dumb when I went in there, and they made me very smart, at least as smart as my wife thinks I can be. And then I wound up going out to Portland, Oregon in the Northwest, because it was a great place to raise kids. And I moved out here with my wife, and along the way, I met Michael when we were back in Iowa, and he eventually wound up joining me in the Northwest. So that's sort of me in a nutshell.
And so being a doctor, how did you make the transition to hard hats?
Well, so Michael he's a PhD in biomechanical engineering, and I'm a clinician, and we had partnered probably for 30 years now in making stuff, right? We both think about problems in different ways. I come from one side, he comes from the other side, put our heads together, and we try to come up with solutions to problems we recognize in the field, usually in the medical field. But we got into brain research for some reason, because Michael had been doing a project in brain research, and we started looking around about how we would fix the brain. But as I told Michael, I said, you can't fix the brain, but we can prevent the injuries in brain injury if we just had a better hat or a better helmet or a better understanding of what's actually going on. And that sort of evolved into where we are now. And those conversations took place close to 20 years ago.
Oh, wow. Michael, tell us your story.
Well, I was born in the same year than this helmet was born. That's a 1967 hard hat, just like the one you taught me. And I was born in Germany, right next to the Swiss border. Absolutely beautiful. Studied engineering there. My dad was an engineer. Just like you, I walked over scrap yards as a child, well, as a teenager, when I tried to fix up my old car, getting spare parts. But then I got my training always in research. I went to Iowa to get formal research training. Research happens all to be in the English language mostly. And Steve kind of struck me. We worked together on a research project, and he really wanted to figure stuff out that's kind of what we do in research. And that's how we engaged. Of course, he moved to Portland, Oregon with his family. And I had many opportunities to go into different research labs in Europe, but I decided to start my own lab with Steve because we both wanted to prevent injuries. And we have very different minds that kind of work well together. And that's how we worked on different interventions, mainly with broken bones, how to treat them better, like treat injury. But like Steve mentioned, you cannot treat a brain injury. You want to prevent it in the first place. And yeah, we never set out to like design a new helmet, but like I showed you my helmet from when I was born, and I can buy literally that helmet today and it looks about the same, like different color, but not much has changed. And as a researcher, when I looked into, well, how are these helmets tested? What standards do they meet? It became very much apparent that they are just built to meet a standard that's very minimal, meaning to prevent your skull from cracking when something comes from the top, like the branch you described. That's great. But the brain is injured in a very, very different way. If you would watch in slow motion a boxing match, well, you win if you hit the other guy on the chin so the head gets that little spin, that little rotational force that knocks you unconscious right there. That's what causes brain injury. If I fall, that little knock on the ground of my head that makes my brain spin a little bit, that's the danger we face. And we felt like, can we improve construction helmets?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I'm listen, I've been played all the sports and probably had a bunch of concussions that probably before concussion protocol is now where it is today. But bottom line is the brain gets shook, and that's the concussion gig. And people don't realize that you can just bump your head a little and you can do some damage, and you just don't know it, and you got to be very, very careful. And there's been plenty of times where I'm like, dude, you're out of the next game. You got to take X amount of days off because those are the rules of the state. You didn't pass the protocol. You're riding the pine, for the next day or two. We just can't screw around with brain injuries and stuff. And, I wouldn't want to be liable anyway. So, but, it's amazing that, just little bumps in your head or big bumps, you just don't know what's going to cause it. And when you're out in a construction yard, whether it's a big beam or a hammer falling down or you just falling yourself, that hard hat is it might not look like much, but it can definitely save your life, and a lot of, wear and tear and rehab and everything else that you have to go through. So, so how did, as you built your company, WaveCel, did you manufacture the old style hats, or how did that go about?
So something you said about, when you get hit in the head, the brain gets shook, right? There's a little bit of a misnomer in terms of the way the brain actually gets injured, right? Because the brain sits in fluid in your skull. It's actually a hydraulic system. And from hydraulic systems that if you put a pressure onto the outside of the skull, it gets equally distributed throughout the contents. So there's no disproportionate movement when you just have a straight hit to the head. It's counterintuitive, but if you were laying on the ground and somebody stepped on your head, you wouldn't have a brain injury because the force would be absorbed by the skull, but you're not doing anything directly to the brain. It's the same thing if you drop something straight down and you don't impart a spin, the force that hits the container, which is the skull, gets equally distributed in the brain, and there's no discrepancy in terms of motion. So you don't have motion in the brain. It doesn't shake back and forth. The key is that when you get hit, it acts like a washing machine. The skull starts to spin around the brain and you have this turbulence. So what we did is we designed a liner to break the ability for a force to create that spin on the skull to create the washing machine effect. And it's important to recognize that the hats that Michael was showing here, these are all suspension type of hats. They all have a suspension system in there. They were originally designed so that when you get hit up top here, that suspension system absorbs the blow. It's kind of like being on a trampoline. You jump up and down on a trampoline in the middle. It's really good at absorbing that force as you go down, you don't get hurt. But the thing about these suspension helmets is that on the side, they don't have that suspension system that works that way. It's like moving to the edge of a trampoline. When you get to the edge and it's rigid, that force can be transmitted quickly to the head, right? That's why there's this big movement into these type 2 helmets where now you have padding on the outside. But the suspension helmets were never really designed for the side hits. In the workplace, actually, the majority of hits are from falls. Yes, things fall on you and so forth, but you trip, you're not looking where you go, and you fall, you hit the side. They're not, the type 1s are not really designed that well to absorb that. The type 2s are. But that issue aside, even after you've done all that, it's really what can you do to that force to mitigate it so it can't create that spin either from the side or for the top. That's what led us to develop WaveCel.
So do you have a WaveCel helmet in front of you that you can show us kind of what the gig is there?
Actually, this is a WaveCel helmet from the outside. It's a fairly slick and low profile design because traditional hard hats, you need this big hump on top because literally air is your cushion. You need that big space for the trampoline to go down. Well, I take the liner out here in a WaveCel helmet. You have our WaveCel liner that's like a 360-degree dome that lines the entire inside. And that dome is very effective at absorbing a straight impact, like a crumple zone in a car. And not only from the top, but from any side, it's a 360-degree dome. But most importantly, as I fall and hit the ground, and there's a rotational force that's the worst for the brain, this entire liner can slide and glide inside the helmet and greatly mitigate the force because WaveCel is a three-dimensional structure of like hundreds of interconnected shock absorbers, and they will fold over to the side, like shear over, to divert the force away from the skull. So you ask us, like, did we go right away into designing a hard hat? It's interesting. We have an independent research lab that we both founded, the Legacy Biomechanics Lab. And we just looked at any material, any technology that we could come up with to break that rotational force to protect the brain. And that's how we, over many years and with funding from the National Institute of Health, government funding, we came up with that WaveCel technology. But when we went to the industry and said, hey, can you make this material into your helmet so they become safer? They said, well, we can't even make the material. So we were really forced, in order to translate our revolutionary research findings into something that would help you when you trim your next tree out there. We had to come up with a US-based company to manufacture that WaveCel. And once we were manufactured the WaveCel, we said, hey, let's also make a hard hat so we can control and best integrate it and get it on workers' hats. So that's really how WaveCel came about.
And to reiterate this idea of the rotation causing injury, we created this egg video, which you can go online and find. And the egg video shows the difference between a straight impact to a skull and an angled impact to the skull and what impact it has on the contents. It's actually fairly dramatic.
Well, it was a dramatic how we got to the video, because Steve keeps telling me make an egg video. And I said, I have a PhD. We are government funded. We are not making an egg video. I can make a computer model. So we made the computer models and people stared at it and literally missed the point. And it's almost, you don't want to believe what the computer calculates. But once you see the egg video, now that's a real untouched video. And first you think you don't believe what you see, but it's a true effect how a linear impact does very little to brain, but the little spin causes, like your southern thunderstorms. They're super short, but very violent.
Mm-hmm. Well, for all you out there, when we post this, in the description, I'm going to have that egg video, the video, that's on there linked, so you'll be able to see that. So I'll make sure that I get that placed on there. So because I know someone's going to ask it, hey, where do I see that video? I'm going to post it in there with the description on their, on their recording. So, how long has WaveCel been in business? How many years have you guys been in business?
It's 2022, probably about 5 years now we've been in business. We didn't really go to market until March of 2019. We started in the bicycle industry and it was a huge hit. And then we went into the snow and ski industry and it's been extremely popular there. And then we dovetailed into construction after that.
Yeah. you know, I'm a skier. I went to University of Denver. I was a ski bum. I was on skis since I was like 3. No one wore any helmets when I was skiing, you know, but little by little, you know, as the snowboarders came in, now everybody's got a helmet on. And, you know, I know plenty of people that have passed, you know, because they got in accidents by hitting trees or collisions on there and they didn't have a helmet. And it's amazing though that, like you said, you went from bicycles, to finally getting into the construction. There's so many different helmets that you could probably use this technology on, whether it's skateboarding or kayaking or, whatever it might be, where there's going to be that opportunity, for contact. But we're talking about construction. So it doesn't matter if you're a general contractor or project manager or superintendent or you're a facility maintenance guy or any of that stuff. You got to wear a hard hat because you just don't know what's going to happen to you. And like I said, your head is just, without your head, your body's pretty much, this is what controls it all. So you want to protect it as much as possible. And
so to underscore what Michael had said, we had started with an idea about how maybe helmets weren't optimized to be able to reduce all head injuries. They're good. Any padding you put on the head is a good thing. Helmets are good, but we started thinking that maybe it wasn't optimized. And then that's when we got into this idea of making WaveCel and perfecting that. And that's sort of what led us down the road to where we are.
Let's talk about, the last 24 months in, beginning of 2020, everything's cranking, cranes all over the place, building, the country was just on a tear. And March comes, everything gets shut down. And, now 24 months later, we're coming out of the tunnel, and we're out of the tunnel as far as I'm concerned. And, we're getting back to our, normalcy. But how did your company, weather the roller coaster of the storm, over that? And, what lessons did you learn that, our listeners out there at Commercial Construction Coffee Talk might find of value?
Well, one thing that was really critical is that we were in the bicycle industry at that point. And then when everybody was shut down and they were sort of hibernating and reclusing off, bicycling was like a great thing to do, right? So the bicycling industry started to boom because people are outside, they're not at work anymore, they're working from home, they want exercise, they want to be outside. So bicycling industry helped us through that era, but it was during that time that we started rethinking about where was the next vertical we wanted to be in. And with all of the problems in terms of supply chain and things going back and forth over the sea, we thought, well, construction's a big market worldwide and it's big in the United States, and it's a simple enough design. We can just make everything ourselves right here at home. And then we can short circuit this whole supply chain thing and make everything right here. And that's what we did. So we used the boom to bicycles to weather that portion. And then we used the switch into construction where we could control every aspect of the helmet. And that's proved to be something really important to our product.
Did you use a distribution network to get your helmets out there, or were you putting them in like in retail stores, like sporting goods stores? How did that all go?
So for our initial launches in bicycle and snow and ski, we partnered with large companies, and they did all the marketing and distribution and everything like that. When we've made the foray into the construction world, we've taken on all of those roles in terms of distribution and putting it out there and putting the word out there. As a matter of fact, we've actually only launched this week in terms of having the product ready to be sold. And we were just at the safety convention in Chicago with a booth talking about the new helmet. And we weren't there ourselves, but our distribution and marketing team was there. And they said the response was overwhelming. So when we constructed this helmet, we went for style and science, right? That's what we pride ourselves on. We wanted something that people would want to wear, because if you're on a construction site, you don't want to wear your helmet, it's not going to do you any good. But if you think it's cool and you like it and you want to wear it, and people seem to think that, you're going to put it on. We want the safety side as well. And so this merging of safety and style, people really seem to respond well to it at the safety convention we just got back from this week.
Now, I know that the press release that your publicist had sent me. You guys have vents in there too with the coolness, correct?
Dave, I was just thinking of you more in the south being very hot. So what WaveCel really is, unlike, let's call it styrofoam in most other, let's say, bicycle helmets, WaveCel is 93% open pores. It's cells that go right through it. Like you see in here, I give you a very close up. And that allows us whole different ventilation means. So one model here has the largest vents on the market. So we have top vents, but large rear vents, 16 cubic centimeters, no, 16 square centimeters in area. So it's probably the most vented helmet being out there. Of course, we have a non-vented for electrical purposes, but that really should make it much cooler and lower profile, thinking that this is probably the only helmet that people wear all day long. Sports helmet, bicycling helmets, we have for hours, but we really want this to be very comfortable. We literally took the comfort from sports helmets and put them into a construction hard hat, but keeping the traditional look.
Mm-hmm. Do they come in all different colors, or do you have like the pink and the light blues for the ladies if they want that look, and then the hardcore dark or whatever for the men? I mean, do they come in multicolors, or are they just basic?
We talked about supply chain, and that's really a big take home from the whole last 2 years roller coaster. These helmets are injection molded 20 minutes from here. I get in my car, right? We can pick them up. We can do any custom color. Right now, they come in like 8 standard colors, ranging all the way from white to black to safety colors. So we by being able to use local manufacturing, we can quickly respond to whatever color is hottest for the next season.
So the answer is we can do it in any color that anybody wants. And the other thing is we've been hydro dipping some of them as well. You see it on some of the football helmets, the really fancy ones. And the hydro dipped helmets look fantastic. So, and you can put any pattern you want on a hydro dipped helmet.
Yeah. So, well, listen, all the contractors, they're all logo oriented. Everybody's got their logo, whether they put the sticker on there or so forth. Now, there you go. There's a patriotic one. I love it.
Hydro dip with the American flag. Very cool.
Very cool. Very cool. Especially, with the weekend coming up. I know your publicist sent me a couple. I'm waiting for them to arrive, and I'm going to wear it next weekend when I go on my next job, because I got to get up on a ladder 2 stories and take down some poison ivy. And anyway, I know it's going to be hot, so I'm going to see about the vents work and stuff. And I'm excited to test stuff out. I test out a lot of stuff for people. I'll run the products, and they'll say, hey, do you want to send them to me, because I'll use them out there. And but it gets hot, and like this hat, this whole helmet. I remember, if I was out in the scrapyard, I'd be sweating my tail off because it was hot and it was heavy, and it just protected me, but it was hot. So I'm psyched to see the vented and stuff. My lacrosse helmet's vented, but it still gets hot, and but it still has that kind of that gel and that spinning, that whole concept. As lacrosse helmets over the years, I look at my old one from my 1980s when I was at DU, and what they are today. I mean, it's absolutely mind-boggling, the technology that's gone in to protect the brain and all that stuff compared to what it was way back when. I don't know how many concussions I probably had, but I remember every one of them. And getting clotheslined and going, ooh, that one, shook me, But then back then they'd say, oh, just walk it off. You'll be okay. Now you do the thing, you're on the bench, man. Sorry, man, you're riding the pine. Looking forward, as we go into the second half of 2020 and Q3 and Q4, obviously you're with the trade show marketing and stuff. Do you have any other new products, as far as, or going to any other industries, with the hats that you have now, or you don't have to give up your secrets and stuff, but do you have any of that things going on?
We have a lot of different places we can go into, but construction's actually a big enough market right now that we don't want to get too strung out in terms of compromising any of the quality we're going to put in our construction helmets, right? So we started out with a type 2 full brim helmet because we saw a big hole in the market in the construction world for that, and people seem to like it. But we're going to move into half brims. We're going to move into potentially no brims. We're going to try to cover the gamut of construction, and that's going to keep us busy for a few years. There's a lot of other leads. We have them in baseball, hockey, equestrian, climbing. All of those things are there, but we're really trying to focus on construction right now because we really want to lead the market in construction helmets.
I had a contractor on last week, maybe the week before. Anyway, she just put her new helmet on. Anyway, her helmet had actually a chin strap, that was a snap. And it was really cool because a lot of hard hats don't have the snap on there. And it was almost like a horseback, helmet, with the snap on there. And I thought that was a very cool thing because, a lot of times your helmet's on and shifting, even though you got the pad in there that's holding you in place. But that would be something that I thought was a really cool idea because I hadn't seen that on a hard helmet. Are you guys thinking about putting those on there?
We designed our helmet to be one that is really hard to come off, right? So we really changed the fit system to adapt to the head so that it's once you put it on, it wants to stay on. In the wind, when you're running around, if you're upside down, it stays on. But we put a chin strap on it as well. So every helmet can come with a chin strap if somebody wants one. And it's a magnetic buckle called a Fidlock. It's really easy on and off. You don't have to screw around with it. It kind of wants to go together.
Yeah, this company, the GC, she was like, "Oh wow, I've got my new strap. Let me show it to you." And she put it on, and she was like, "Oh, because I always worry about my helmet falling off." And I was like, "Oh wow, that's really cool. I haven't seen one of those in a long time." So, well, I can't wait for my helmets to come and see if my wife likes it. I want it, and it's gonna be. But the vent thing was really the most important thing to me. Just the staying cool. Because. Obviously you got, you're a doctor, you understand, listen, the back of your neck, you want to keep your head cool and you got to stay hydrated here in the South. And it gets boiling hot here, July, August, and then it kind of cools down. But I'm excited to see, how things work and so forth. What lessons do you think you learned over the 24 months of the roller coaster? Even though you grew your company, you got into some different sectors, what are the lessons did you learn, maybe, company culture wise or, dealing with, maybe some of your people were working out of the house and now they're coming, what lessons do you think you learned?
I think one of the things we learned was business 101, right? So it's always supply and demand. And the demand is there because the people seem to like the product, but on the supply side, you need to have multiple vendors, multiple suppliers, people that you can get to quickly, right? We have shipping problems, right? And so by keeping everything local and using different types of people locally and different vendors, we're able to sort of pivot whenever we need to be able to fulfill the supply side of what's going on. And the supply chain has been a huge issue for a couple of years now, and it's not going to go away in the next couple of months, right? And so we're very well positioned, either by luck or hopefully by forethought, to be able to source from multiple places, so that when we have an order for 10,000 or 20,000, we're able to fulfill it relatively quickly without a 6-month delay, which is what people are generally used to.
Did during the roller coaster over the 24 months, did you do any of the hybrid or people working at a house? Obviously in the factory, the manufacturing, they had to be in there and so forth. How did that work?
Well, one nice thing is that our factory is relatively large. It's 55,000 square feet and it's very high. And so it's very open air. So we were able to space people out throughout the area with great ventilation. And during the high point of the pandemic, I don't think but one person actually got sick because I think of that setup. And now that if people have become more comfortable and social distancing is broken down in private settings, more people have contracted the virus, but it's not because of the facility that they were in. I just think it's because they're relaxing social distancing outside of that. So that we were fortunate in terms of manufacturing to be able to continue manufacturing through all that, and most people still coming into work, but giving them all the distance that they needed and the feeling that they were almost outside.
Mhm, mhm. You know, being an orthopedic, you're an orthopedic surgeon, correct?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've had both, you know, that's construction. I've had both my ACLs done, you know, and patella in one leg and cartilage in the other. And, you know, they cut the, you know, your ACL is a little wispy little, you know, ligament. And, you know, they cut it out. They take your new ligament, depending on where they take it. And they put 2 screws in, they rub it in there, and then it's rehab. But that's really, it's just carpentry work, you know, when you really think about it. And, I remember back in the 80s when a couple of my buds blew their knees out, they'd have the long scars and the, you know, rehab was just, you know, brutal. You know, now you get a couple holes, you know, they pinpoint it, they go in there, they get it, they put the 2 screws in and, you know, it's amazing, but you got to stretch the rubber band. I've broken so many things in my life. I'm like Captain Lego. I've been put together like Humpty Dumpty, you know, so many times, fingers, ribs, this, you know, this is my broken thumb from lacrosse from the winter, and it still probably hasn't healed. And my doctor said, I can put it in a cast, but I can put you in a splint. And anyway, like I said, I've been put together, but when it comes to the head, hey, you got to be very, very careful. So.
Well, I mean, it's a good point because, you know, I do put a lot of people together, and you know, when I go on a job site and I'm talking to people, I tell them, you know, look, you can break your bone, you can tear your muscle, you can destroy your joint. I can usually put it back together and you're going to actually do fairly well. And lo and behold, when I'm local, I usually bring that up and somebody says, well, you remember you worked on me like 5 years ago and, you know, and they seem to be doing fine. And I said, but you see, here's the crux of the issue. That stuff can be fixed, but we're into the head brain prevention injury because you can't fix it. The central nervous system has no capacity to repair itself. You can get a concussion, which is a jarring and it's sort of a temporary paralysis of a portion of the brain, but there's a threshold in the brain that once you pass it, once you stretch brain tissue past a certain degree, and it's not a lot, it never comes back. So we really wanted to, you know, optimize the way that you could prevent any of that from happening. And right now we're doing that on the job.
You know, when I was doing a site visit the other night, and the gentleman was there. He'd gotten into a motorcycle accident in the early 90s and wasn't wearing a helmet, was out in California, hit a manhole. He was going about 70 on a, you know, on a race bike. And anyway, he flew, was in a coma for about 2 months. And they said that he was brain dead, but they prayed for him or whatever. And then he finally came out of it and wrote, hey, you know, change me or whatever. And he was today, 30, 40 years later, he's, you know, talking to me. And he said, yeah, you know, I was with 10 guys, but they all sold their bikes. And the one that still rides, he rides with a helmet, you know. And he said, if I would have had a helmet on, I probably would have been a lot better off, you know, just because, you know, the way that he, you know, he said he was like Superman, but then when he hit, he got jarred and shaken and you know, that was the gig. But I was amazed that when he told me this, and there he was standing there, you know, 1991, yeah, 30 years later, 30 plus, there he was, still a little slow. You could tell, you know, that, you know, he was, you know, but it was a really amazing story. And the wife was there too. She was saying all the stuff but once again, head injury. And you just don't know, you know, if you're going to come back or not. And God knows there's been so many people that have gone through that stuff, and if they only had a better protection. So I admire you both for coming together to come up with this technology. There's hundreds and thousands, millions of contractors out there that wear helmets. So if you're out there watching this and you want to find something really, really cool to check out, WaveCel. It's vented. It's probably better protection for you. It stays on your head, and you know, look them up on the web, and you know, see if you know, when it comes to price, are they comparable as far as to the usual hard hat that you can get, or you know, how does that work?
Well, we have a saying at WaveCel, if you have a $20 brain, you wear a $20 helmet. But in terms of the Type 2s and the latest helmets that are out there, we're comparable with all those price points. We're not a $20 helmet, but all the other high-end helmets, we're right in the ballpark with them.
You know, helmets are like tires. Tires on your car, they all do the same thing, but a better tire might keep you, you know, on the road better, whether it's in snow or rain. Same thing with cleats. You know, some cleats work better than others on, you know, turf or grass or what have you. So some things you got to buy, but you know, they all do the same thing. But if you want to, you pay a little more, it's worth it, because without your head and your brain, you know, you're pretty much useless.
Well,
So
I mean, it's a great point. Your tires, if you're going to go racing around and your tires are bald, it only takes one and you could be dead. One problem, one blowout at the wrong time doing 70 around a turn or something like that. So when it comes to me, I'm looking at my tires and the guy, you know, the guy's looking at him. He's like, you know, these are starting to get a little worn. I'm like, oh, just change them out. There's no reason for me to take that risk when I don't need to. But then again, I'm an orthopod, so I see all that stuff all the time.
So if you were going to leave, but if either one of you, as we finish up here, if you were going to leave one positive thought or phrase with our audience out there, Commercial Construction Coffee Talk, what would it be?
So my phrase is fairly easy. You only get one brain, and there's nothing truer that was ever said.
Okay. What's yours, Michael?
For a simple phrase, I'm the engineer. I always have the longer version. I mean, brain injury is called by the government the silent pandemic, because it happens to so many people and they just sometimes have lifelong deficiencies. So just don't go cheap on your brain. Actually, Steve mentioned before, what is the saying? Don't be
penny wise and pound foolish.
That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, hey, good advice. You know, no doubt. And like I said, you know, if you're out there, if someone wanted to come and reach out to you about your hard hats or had questions about the technology, et cetera, how would they reach out to you? Well, I mean, you can give your email or your website. How would they contact you? Where would they find you?
WaveCel.com, but it's cell with a single L, WaveCel.com.
So one word, WaveCel with a single L.com. So WaveCel.com, and then, you know, we take orders or we answer questions, whatever people need. A lot of information on that site too. And
your egg video is on there too, right?
It is.
It's a good one to look at. Yep.
Yeah, we're going to put it on there. We're going to put the egg video on there. So we'll take care of it. For those of you who want to reach me, I'm at davidc@ccr-mag.com. If you're not a subscriber, hey, go to our homepage, hit subscribe. We send the magazine now to 125,000 people, the new issue. I had another 2.5 million people hit my website last month in June. You know, we're just rolling, and, you know, we post content every day. So if you have anything new, like their publicists, they sent me it. I never saw it. I thought it was cool. I put it up there, you know, and I know a lot of you have heard me say it a million times. If you don't play the lottery, you can't win. If you don't send me something like these gentlemen did, I can't post it. So, you know, you can send me, you know, new products, you know, charity golf tournaments, you know, good stories, case studies. I look at everything. Getting in the magazine is very, very tough, but we find a place for it somewhere on social media, on the web. Send it to me, because we look at everything. So, and I like looking at all this stuff, because the day I stop learning is the day I should go do something else. So that would be the best thing. So with that said, gentlemen, I really appreciate the time here. You know, early afternoon, late afternoon out here. And what are you going to do over the 4th of July weekend for yourselves?
Family.
Yeah. Michael?
We'll all be family. Yep.
Yeah. Well, listen.
The best age.
Yeah. You know, I'm going to, we have a piece of land up the lake. We're, you know, looking to build, and my mother's coming down, and she's 82. And I said, look, you know, as you get older, you know, we'd like to build a, you know, a little suite or whatever. But if we do it afterwards, you know, the Army Corps engineer runs all the building permits on the lake, and it's septic tank. I said, look, it's much easier for us to tweak the plans now and have a little place for you than it is after, you don't want to do electrical when the drywall's already up or plumbing. So the same as here. We have the plans, but so I'm excited that she's coming down here so she can see the lot and go, wow, I could see myself staying there. Great. Let's talk to the architect and we'll tweak it while you're here, and you'll have your place there. So, down the road, if you want to, stay with us, I can think of worse places to be than up on Lake Lanier, So with that said, everybody out there, have a great 4th of July. Like I said, don't work, eat some burgers, have some fun, family, friends, recharge your battery, because the next 6 months are going to be awesome. These gentlemen, they got the right idea. That patriotic helmet is unbelievable. So let me show you something here real quick. That look, this was my grandfather's helmet. He was a combat engineer in World War II. So this actually hat kind of has that same look, where you guys came from. And, it's got, this is 1942, 44. I mean, this is really old. I don't even know if it'll fit me anymore. But it kind of has that same little look, And I don't know if this was his major or his lieutenant colonel helmet, but anyway, he was underneath Patton. He built all the old bridges back. But it's amazing, that same kind of helmet, you guys have taken it. All right. That looks awesome. Yeah. All right. So everybody out there, enjoy your weekend. Stay cool. Stay hydrated. Listen, the next 6 months are going to be wild in this country. I mean, every day something happens politically, business. I mean, I'm mentally drained by the end of the day. By the time I get up early in the morning, boom, it's time for me to go to bed. I'm like, I gotta get some Z's. But every day, so much happens, and it's going to be exciting year. I know everybody's booming. They can't find supers, they can't find project managers, but they're out there and they could do more business. But everybody I know is busy. Better be busy than not. And if you are busy and you're out in the construction site, look at these helmets. They're safe, they're vented, and they'll stay on. So. With that said, Steve, Michael, say goodbye from Portland.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it. You take care. Have a great 4th.
Happy 4th of July. Stay safe.
Yeah, we appreciate it. And I'm going to say goodbye from Lake Lanier, right below the Beaufort Dam, about 30 miles north of downtown Atlanta. And we will see you next time on another episode of Commercial Construction Coffee Talk. And gentlemen, I look forward to seeing you in person and shaking your hands. When I get out in the Northwest, down the road. Okay. All right, guys. We will see you next time, and have a great weekend. All right. Pleasure meeting you.
See ya.
See ya.